Hello. It's lovely to have this opportunity to talk to you about the coming months of 2017. So I'm Pamela Cuccinell, and as an astrologer, I track the heavens to get a sense of what's ahead. And in our highly technological world, the ancient art of astrology has, believe it or not, even more relevance. So in the 20th century, the psychologist Carl Jung opened the concept of astrology, tarot, and other forms of metaphysics as doorways into psychological understanding. Thank you, Carl. Today, the tool of astrology can support your personal journey in comprehensive ways. Yes, psychological, but perhaps even more important, through spiritual evolution that allows you to make the most of your emotional, physical, financial, and personal destiny. I hear a lot of talk these days about finding one's purpose, and that really speaks to, yes, we have a career, yes, we have things we're doing in this lifetime, but are we feeling spiritually fulfilled? And astrology really does speak to that and helps a person find which ways or areas in life they can magnify to really make that shine. So in our busy world, self-reflection often takes a back seat, even when you'd like to make time for that. So even as I'm speaking, you may be glancing at your phone, some text messages may be coming in, and you might want to turn off your phone as you listen to this broadcast, or simply ask yourself, how often do I turn off potential distractions and so that I can really give to myself? Because less and less we do that, and more we feel we have to be on all the time. It takes self-respect to turn off the phone and to shut down the mind. You may say to me, but my job, family, responsibilities need me to be on call 24/7. And, I do get it. Well, I do get the thing about being on 24/7. My father's last years put me in an unpredictable landscape. I never knew when the phone would ring, and I had to act. Even with that pressure, however, I would give myself passages of silence. I basically needed to. I felt selfish at times, but I needed to. I wasn't always successful at staving away the low-grade worry and anxiety, but when I was able to get there, it was definitely worth it. And as I look back, never once did I find myself getting a panic call when I was meditating or doing yoga or really going offline. When I forecast the future, I provide the energetic weather. And you can hear my weekly forecasts on my YouTube channel or get a subscription to the encapsulated MP3 at stokethefire.guru. And I'll also tell you about other ways to receive comprehensive insight, but the main focus of this talk is about two shifts that occur this autumn of 2017, actually one in the winter, and they will echo shifts in work, goals, and finance. Now, ancient people were able to make prophecies from simple observation of nature. Many of us have forgotten how to do that. 5,000 years ago, when the star Sirius rose just before the sun, the Egyptians knew that the Nile was about to flood. Now, their lives depended on that cycle, when the river's waters would fill the plains and leave very rich soil to be cultivated. Now, they thought this occurred because the goddess Isis wept every year at that time for the loss of her husband Osiris. The Egyptians didn't realize that the Nile flooded cyclically because of monsoons in Ethiopia. Regardless, they worked with the cycles of nature that they observed. And in this case, the annual rising of the dog star Sirius was what triggered it for them. And we still say the dog days of August, even though the meaning has changed. The shifts I'm going to discuss are Jupiter in Scorpio, which begins October 10th, 2017. That's right, as I'm airing this, that's tomorrow. And that occurs through November 8th, 2018. Saturn's passage begins in Capricorn in late December. These planetary shifts have universal significance, but each one of you will have a personal experience with the shifts, unique to you. We place a tremendous importance on thought and the mind in today's world. We live in the information age when any question can be answered by Google, or can it? The New York Times used to print, yes, print, I mean paper. This is an aside, but if you've ever seen the original version of Blade Runner, it was so funny to me to show it to my daughter for the first time and see Harrison Ford whip out a newspaper. I mean, Blade Runner was supposed to be about the future, and all Ripley Scott could think of was newspaper. That's how they get information. And even seeing it now, it's obsolete. Okay, that's an aside, but the New York Times still has relevance. The Times used to print the best inventions of the year. And I was struck some time ago, and was trying to remember the issue. I don't know if it was 8 years, 7 years, how long ago it was, but they suggested that they couldn't really print the best innovations of the year because basically we were just recycling ideas through the internet and no truly unique concept had been hatched. That might have been an editorial low for the Times, but with a continual barrage of information, are we really evolving? As scientists create and cyborg humans become less threatening and more possible, it behooves us to ask ourselves, what happens if our spiritual and emotional evolution does not keep up with technology? What happens indeed? A personal story. When I was in my early 20s, I lived in what my daughter would call a sketchy neighborhood in New York City. This was in the truly gritty 1970s when the city was almost bankrupt and muggings were commonplace. One night, after a couple of guys robbed my purse, I'd replaced my ID so many times that I actually ran after them. One guy turned around and aimed a gun at me. My knees fell underneath me, and yes, I kissed, not pavement, that particular street had cobblestones. And when I lifted my head, they were long gone, and people were rushing to where they heard the shot to see what happened. When I talked to a detective the next day, he asked if I had had military training. Apparently, most people in that situation stand frozen, which makes them a very easy target. My mind had nothing to do with my survival. What saved me that night was a visceral response. We are all hardwired in different ways. Even though I didn't know why at the time, I have strong survival instincts. Turn off this box. So I realized that when I started really delving into astrology, and I've realized that even more recently as I'm delving into another form of metaphysics. So the strong survival instincts obviously are a good thing because I also happen to have strong risk-taking indications. I'm older now, which means I'm not likely to do anything like live in sketchy neighborhoods or run after muggers. But if I had known astrology at that point in time, I'd like to think I would have made different decisions, not only that night, but many of the decisions I was making. I certainly was going through what an astrologer would call awful transits. And if I had understood that, I'd like to think I'd processed some of them differently. Yet I also know that much of my life experience occurred the way it did to put me where I am today. When I teach and share wisdom, I can tell you that it comes from hard-won experience. The story I just told you is just one experience. My heartfelt goal is to make your way a bit easier and to offer support through this terrific journey of life. The more people who live with conscious awareness and a determination to create peace within themselves, the better it is for all of us. I was an angry, restless, fearful young woman all those years ago, and I was light years from peace. I wish I could say I found peace after that experience, but with untreated PTSD and a dysfunctional relationship, among other unconscious patterns, I had to stumble and fall a few more times. So why do I tell you this story? Because when we race through life with unawareness as to our surroundings, we miss opportunities. Had I been aware of what was around me instead of thinking about an argument I had had with my boyfriend, I might have avoided walking directly towards those muggers. Fortunately, hyper-awareness to my surroundings kicked in when the gun was aimed at me. Then my mind shut up with its outrage at the injustice of being robbed yet again, and my body took over to protect itself. I love science, which astounds those who think astrology is woo-woo. Science tells us that to think the moon cycles have an effect on the human psyche is nonsense. Science can declare that the fact the lunar cycle is about 28 days, as is the natural human menstrual cycle, is just a coincidence. Of course, science has manipulated the natural menstrual cycle, and a woman can go years without bleeding. The question remains, how does this affect her emotional body? Because we can control the physical body in this way, what are the long-term effects? When I point out the value to work with the lunar cycle, it is to give you an edge. Our technology allows us to make dams and to bring water to the desert communities. But over time, we have been learning that the cost of this may be greater than its value. By the same token, you can work against the cycles of the moon and launch activities when she's waning, or call a new client when the moon is void. But why invest in the desert when you can create in a fertile valley? When we pay attention to the cycles of the moon and the dance of the entire solar system, we work with the natural flow instead of against it. We pay attention to the world around us instead of staring at a small screen controlled by what exactly? We have the illusion of control in our technological world. When I walk around New York City or take a subway now, it's a much safer place than when I was young. Thank goodness. Nonetheless, I marvel at how many people keep their eyes on their phones as they text and walk, oblivious to the dynamic world around them. People are not machines yet. The great astrologer Donna Cunningham wrote a book decades ago. It was called How to Be a Lunar Type in a Solar World. What my astrology, and Donna was my first teacher actually, what my astrology focus brings is to help you tap into that lunar root, because the moon symbolizes the emotional body. memory, habits, your relationship to what nurtures you, and your relationship to the earth, as well as your survival instinct. When Donna coined Solar World, she defined how we emphasize doing, shining, and self-expression in our society. And actually, she wrote that, I think, when computers were in DOS mode a very long time ago. So when we shine and emphasize all this outer stuff, it's often at the cost of what feels safe, sustains, and allows continuity and tribal community. Our phones, computers, and operating systems are all designed for obsolescence, so we can buy more to stay relevant. So how do we foster and develop that lunar side that supplies a wellspring of wisdom, sensitivity, and innate knowing? You're in the right place to tap into that knowledge supplied by awareness of the organic world and the universe. Okay, Pam, let's get to it. I'll let you know how to work more directly with me, especially for ongoing support, but let's get to the Jupiter-Saturn story right now. So these days, the news bludgeons us with negativity. Of course, it always did, because disasters sell better than things just being good. But in 2017, we may remember this as the year fake news exploded. With Saturn, the planet that symbolizes structure, limits, discipline, and fear, because nothing limits us as much as fear, Saturn's been in the last degrees of Sagittarius this year. Sagittarius is the sign that symbolizes foreign lands, travel, higher education, legal matters, justice, and the press. And we continue to see how uncomfortable Saturn is in that sign. What I mean by that is Saturn wants to restrict, define, and contain. Think of Saturn's rings. It was the planet which appeared to be the border guard of the solar system to the ancients. Occasionally they saw a little wink from Uranus, but with no telescopes, Saturn seemed to be the limit. The sign of Sagittarius, on the other hand, wants to reach out to the wider world and explore what to Saturn may feel like danger. Sagittarius loves to sell a concept, learn something new, which may or may not be viable. As people in the United States grapple with the idea of border walls, the price of education, charter schools, public schools, and freedom of the press, to say nothing of the cost of healthcare and firearms, the shift of Jupiter into Scorpio may stir the pot even more. Now, why is that? Sagittarius is the sign linked to the planet Jupiter. Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. Its gravitational orbit sucks in asteroids that would otherwise crash into Earth. So Jupiter represents the great benefic, luck, good fortune, opportunity, and possibilities. The sign that Jupiter is in has an effect on what goes on during Saturn's stint in Sagittarius, because Sagittarius relates back to Jupiter. So Jupiter in Libra this year has been about extreme polarization. Now, a lot of people see the sign of Libra as diplomacy, harmony, and let's make nice. And this is certainly true, but there's also a need to define oneself through the other. So Libra is relationship oriented, not only for a partner, whether romantic or business or diplomatic, but also whoever may be your mortal enemy. How personally this has affected you has to do with where Libra falls in your horoscope. Right. I'll talk about that later. I'm just thinking. So once Jupiter moves into Scorpio, the last couple of months of 2017 may start to take a different tone for you. Since Pluto, which is the outer planet linked to Scorpio, is in direct motion through the end of the year, we can expect ongoing revelations through the press or in business or finances, and these things can affect our education, judicial systems, as well as foreign relations. This is true regardless of where you are on the planet. How directly it involves your country depends on your country's natal horoscope. How directly it may affect you as a human being depends on your natal horoscope. So revelations and things can happen within your family, your business, your life. One constant in this fast-moving millennium is the reality that we each have an impact on one another, countries, neighbors, and internet trolls. So Libra is a cardinal air sign. It starts things. Cardinal means initiate, starting, especially in the realm of thought, conversation, justice, relationships, both positive and negative. Libra can mediate or play the devil's advocate. If you find harmony and stasis for any length of time in the house in your particular horoscope, so house means area of life, so area of life in your particular world is overseen by Libra, the sign of Libra. You're going to continue to adjust and need to keep an even keel in that area of life. It's almost as though wherever Libra is, you invite in new perspective or conflict to keep balance. It's hard to keep, I mean, I know kids don't do it anymore, but when I was a kid, we had seesaws. It's hard to keep seesaws totally in balance. And every time I would do it with my brother, he'd get this little wicked gleam in his eye and hop off so that I hit the ground. Yes, he was my Libra in conflict. So with Jupiter and Libra, we've experienced a great deal of friction with justice, foreign relations, and the press. As fake news, serious journalism, and conspiracy theories duke it out, we lean towards the next sign, hungrily. Let's get to Jupiter and Scorpio. Maybe that'll solve the mysteries. With Jupiter about to leave Libra, Harvey Weinstein faces allegations of sexual harassment. Hugh Hefner, who created an empire linking women's bodies with material goods, has died. Bill Cosby faces a retrial in November once Jupiter is in Scorpio. Could this indicate our justice system and society are about to dive deeper into the economics and power schism of sexuality? It's an ongoing thing. I'm afraid I have to mention the horrible mass shooting in Las Vegas, which presently has no obvious motive. It has, however, like the Black Lives Matter movement, shown clear divides to people's reactions. Since Uranus, the planet that symbolizes freedom, revolution, and what's unique about us, Uranus in late degree of Aries, the sign that initiates. The tension of separation has been extreme and volatile. Uranus, like Jupiter, both these names, these gods, were sky gods, and they weren't bound by earthly restrictions. So they represent matters of the mind. Jupiter and Uranus, tempestuous, distant, powerful, and detached. With the two planets at 180 degrees to one another these past few weeks, we have been thrown with unprecedented hurricanes and an unfathomable assault from a skyscraper hotel. It doesn't matter if this affects you directly or not, it affects you. There is an apprehension of an increase of capricious incidents, which seem beyond our control. Now, this call is being recorded on the United States Columbus Day, which has a growing movement to be renamed Indigenous People Day. Statues of the Confederate leaders and Columbus, who we now know destroyed, slaughtered, and enslaved the cultures he came across. These statues are threatened with extinction as Saturn makes its last moves in Sagittarius. As higher education, media, and research, all symbolized by Sagittarius, have unearthed the true foundation of the United States, we must determine what we will create over the next cycle. Now, I've just talked a bit about the United States, but it doesn't really matter where you are on the world. These big symbol movements, as I said earlier, how deeply they're affecting the country you're living in has to do with your country's basic makeup. In the case of the United States, its horoscope has Sagittarius rising, so this Saturn configuration has been having a big effect on the United States. Again, does the planet Saturn have an effect on the United States, or are we just looking at cycles that are synchronistic to what is happening here? Now, once Jupiter moves into the sign of Scorpio, the need and willingness to dig deeper will start to manifest, especially in 2018 when Jupiter goes retrograde and Saturn is in Capricorn, fully in Capricorn. So what can we anticipate in the coming months? Saturn moves into Capricorn on December 19th. So we'll be seeing a lot of this kind of chaotic discomfort until it lands at that point. Because once that happens, the chaos that seems so pervasive starts to shift. That doesn't mean it goes away. It means it starts to shift. It starts to take form that maybe is less incoherent and more, okay, what do I do with that piece? And what do I do with this piece? Jupiter in Scorpio is in the sign of what we call fixed water. Fixed means it has a lot of stick-to-itiveness. It stays the course. It's tenacious. So instead of messages from all over, we'll start to receive a steady, unrelenting stream. The mixed signals will start to coalesce, and the messages, although not necessarily comfortable, will go deep. There is danger, of course, of certain governments wanting to shut down communications to instill safety and make things secure. This would be at a great cost. In the United States, freedom of speech will continue to be hotly debated. An increased desire to deepen into spiritual and therapeutic pursuits receives support from Neptune, which has been in the sign of Pisces. Again, the past year or so, it's been very uncomfortable because Neptune in Pisces has been at difficult degrees with Saturn in Sagittarius, but we're past that. So now there's more of an opportunity to start to integrate a lot of what's been kind of bubbling up and exposed. The more automatic a belief system, the more subjected to exploration it becomes. For instance, religious and educational institutions and prison systems will continue to erode if their foundations are built on an unsustainable premise. Pluto has been in Capricorn since the financial collapse in 2008. So when speculative Jupiter enters Scorpio, anything not on the up and up may get exposed relatively quickly. Pluto, in whatever sign it's in, creates irrevocable transformation. So what happened in 2008, and with checks and balances not really been enforced perhaps in the way they should be, Jupiter and Scorpio may start to reveal where the holes in the vessel are. So Mars is in Virgo until late October. So Mars is the planet that shows how we go after what we want. And in the sign of Virgo, over the next couple of weeks, it really shows ramping up of services designed to help repair compromised areas attacked by storms and trauma. Mars is in Libra from October 22nd to December 8th. And you may notice a pullback occurs either in a situation you were in or one that you observe. But on December 9th, when Mars enters Scorpio, those who connect deeply are really in their element. This continues until late January, and networking light takes a back seat as the power connectors move in. So if you've been wanting to invest in yourself for an opportunity late this year into 2018 may be the right time for you if you're up to a really deep commitment. As Saturn makes its final round in Sagittarius, some of you may experience an echo to events that occurred in your life in 1988. So when Saturn makes a direct transit to a point in your birth horoscope, something concrete happens. It's a physical manifestation of a new orientation to how you do life. Getting born, married, divorced, changing jobs, moving, giving birth, or going back to school are all direct manifestations of Saturn's effect. So if nothing comes to mind about 1988, the effect of this past Saturn transit may have been more subtle for you. Yet on December 19th, when Saturn enters its natural sign of Capricorn, we will all notice a shift that starts to occur, especially as you sharpen your ability to read the signposts that symbols provide. And if you want to learn more how to do that, I'll let you know how to do that, how you can learn more in just a little bit. So Saturn in Capricorn launches a few years to create new and ideally more solid foundations, with Jupiter in Scorpio to reveal any subterfuge, and Pluto in Capricorn, which demands irrevocable transformation, as I said earlier. We are poised to begin shifts that will outlive us. Big shifts. We're talking big, big shifts. Of course, it's no secret to anybody who's paying attention that our world is changing incredibly fast. And the decisions we all make, and I mean we all make, are going to have an effect on what happens 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and exponentially. And that's because every single individual has more impact than they think. When we connect in a way that's beyond the thinking mind, we can change things. Many of us have forgotten this power. And that's why working in right community is so important over the next few years and beyond. It's almost as though the illusion of alienation and the mechanisms that create the illusion that people are less and less connected is to stop the power that true connection really has. So, coming out of this rather brutal period where Jupiter held the mirror of Venus, we've been asked to look at how we created this world that seems to be out of control. My father had many bromides, and he used to say, "I'm in a world I didn't make." And although that's a human enough reaction, it does not mean that one can't make a better world. You start where you can. With so many planets going into earth and water signs, we can create tangible flow and redefine outworn structures. We can slow down to make a difference. So start with yourself. If you'd like support to build confidence, make better decisions, increase inner knowing, and gain conscious presence through community support, I'll let you know about a program to help you do just that. For now, let's go through the signs so that you have an idea what you can expect over the next few months. Keep in mind that what I'm about to list is based on sun sign astrology, and the picture gets more dimensional when we look at your whole horoscope. For instance, if you know what your rising sign is, not just your sun sign, your rising sign is also known as your ascendant, jot down that information as well. Okay, Jupiter and Scorpio for an Aries. Scorpio and Aries share an affinity, even though you may not recognize it. Both signs are natural energy for the planet Mars. Mars was the god of war and desire. With Jupiter and Scorpio, an Aries may feel an increased desire to invest. This includes investing in love and money. You may also receive money from a source other than your own sweat of brow. This can be a very good time for your career and how you are seen in the outer world, depending on your personal horoscope. Jupiter and Scorpio for a Taurus. A relationship may feel compelling and seductive. It can open your world and take you to new heights through travel and education. This may be a time of contractual accountability in a relationship as well, either through business or marriage. Depending on other factors, it's either time to commit or cut your losses. And in an ongoing relationship, it can be a time to liven it up. So Jupiter in Scorpio for a Gemini. Any investments you make in your health and exercise routine can pay off big. If your bookkeeping is not the best, be proactive in cleaning up any potential for a reckoning. This may not be the sexiest manifestation of Jupiter, but better control of your finances can be its own reward. Jupiter in Scorpio for a Cancer. Creativity bubbles up and it's time to answer it. Take that improv course or painting course, depending on your personal makeup. Not every Cancer wants to get on the stage. But then, of course, there are many incredibly great natural introverts, people who are, Bette Midler, believe it or not, says she's shy. Go figure. Romance is highly likely this year for the Cancer, but the keeper of a relationship is a rock-solid candidate. So play if you like, but only a stand-up partner will go the distance. This is also a great time to put new life in an old relationship for you too. So Jupiter in Scorpio for a Leo. This may not be the most playful time for you, which Leos love to play, but it can connect you to your roots and provide a greater sense of home, where you came from. You may feel a bit isolated with coworkers, but your emphasis may be on family and home. You might have a foreign exchange student passing through or some kind of new energy in the home. Jupiter in Scorpio for a Virgo. This might be your time for a new car for you, new neighbors, or new lines of communication start to open up. It might also involve a serious commitment to what used to be a pastime or hobby for you. You're stepping up. As you step up your game, you expand your voice. Jupiter in Scorpio for a Libra. Now this can be a fabulous year for you financially, not investments so much as an expanded sense of your value in the world. A raise or increased income may reflect in not having as much time as you'd like at home. Jupiter in Scorpio for a Scorpio, and this puts you in great demand, which depending on other aspects of your horoscope may feel comfortable or not so comfortable for you. Although the spotlight is increased, it may reflect on your being very careful about your words, especially in public speaking. Jupiter in Scorpio for a Sagittarius. You have an angel on your shoulder this year. So even if things feel tight for you financially, or you have any kind of restrictions, help is available. Depending on when you were born, the last few years may have been very tough. A lightness of being can be ahead. Jupiter in Scorpio for a Capricorn. Your luck comes through groups this year. So whether you find yourself in a new home, new job, or clueless as to your next path, get out and network. You may be used to doing everything yourself. Capricorns often are. But when you connect with the right people, they can direct you to a higher star. Jupiter in Scorpio for an Aquarius. This is not a year to be pushing it uphill. Success and kudos actually should just come your way, believe it or not. If you've been on the right path, this is when it really pays off. You are in a groove, and when you allow it to flow, it will. Jupiter in Scorpio for a Pisces. Now this is your year to travel, although it may be with someone older or someone younger. Not that that's bad or good, it's just that's what it looks like. You may also decide to go back to school and or publish at last that book. So these are just a few thoughts on what to expect over the next few months and with Jupiter over the next year. Perhaps you want to start your own business, or a relationship has ended, or your responsibilities have radically shifted. You might be excited by the potential ahead, but you don't have a clear picture of what action to take. Now, you can always book a private session with me for validation and insight. So I wish you a lovely evening, many blessings. Thanks for coming on. And you can contact me via email, or you'll be getting emails from me. Would love to hear from you. Okay, bye-bye.